Welcome to the broadcast, everybody. The headlines are buzzing over the last few weeks with comparisons between Meghan and Gwyneth. Now, one thing that didn't escape my attention is Gwyneth's candle some time ago. Do you remember this candle? It was the one that is said to be reminiscent of the odour of the intimate feminine. And granted, I'm not the target audience for that sort of market, my dear, but for the princely sum of $75, you can roll up and have a good sniff of Gwynnie's bits, which apparently smell of things like tuberose and roses and all kinds of geraniums and musks and civets, who knows, my dear. I mean, you know, talk about romancing the stone. I think that's pushing the boundaries of the imagination, isn't it? I mean, does yours really smell like a royal rose garden, my dear? Well, don't answer that question. Anyway, we all know that hers smells like violets and so does Meghan's, apparently. Well, you know, it might be giving Markle ideas, because you might also remember that Prince Harry was asked what his favourite smell is. Did he plant that question? I don't know. But he was asked, and his favourite smell, of course, was my wife. My wife. She's just so intoxicating, so intoxicating. So I wouldn't put it past her to start merching out candles and all kinds of fragrances called my wife or his wife, whatever it is, that are supposed to smell like Rachel Ragland. You know, because everybody is saying that this Tig that is about to be re-released and unleashed upon the world, so they say, has taken a lot of inspiration from Gwynnie, another idol. You know, wants a bit of that well-being and beauty lifestyle to give you expert relationship advice on how you're going wrong and how to get on with your family via Markle. It could be very lucrative for her, my dears. I mean, I know that you and I won't be queuing up round the block for first sniff, but some weirdos out there might get their jollies. All she's got to do is piss in a pot, stick a label on it, and call it, "This smells like my Elizabeth Regina." You wouldn't put it past her, would you? Well, joking aside, because Gwyneth is in the press so much at the moment with this court case going on, I actually thought it would be quite interesting to showcase some comparisons in their behaviour, because Gwyneth is under trial via court of law, and Meghan's appearance on Oprah Winfrey was a trial by court of public opinion. In Gwyneth's case, she is facing down this plaintiff. In Meghan's case, she was facing down the royal family and the kingdom and the reputation of this land. And though they are totally different scenarios and different contexts, my aim here is to compare the optics of these goings-on and the repercussions, the initial repercussions, because it's very interesting. Meghan's impact was rather forceful and positive and in favour of her for the opening weeks. It wasn't until later that most people caught on, and it wasn't until months and years later that the rest of the world really caught on to what was going on. And similarly with Gwyneth, I think she's actually facing a lot of disparagement online and a lot of judgment. And so her initial impact hasn't been received so well. But in the fullness of time, I have a feeling that she might come out smelling a little bit more of roses than Meghan Markle's done. We'll see. In the name of full disclosure, I should let you know that I am actually Team Gwyneth as it stands, and I'm giving her the benefit of the doubt. I've never met her, but I have friends that know her very well, and some that have hosted her at their house in the Hamptons several times. And from what I hear is lovely. Well, I can't speak to that, but I can speak to Chris Martin. I have met him on several occasions, and he is absolutely lovely. And I know he's an ex-husband of hers, but it speaks well of her character that he was involved with her. I also have a family member that grew up with Apple Martin very closely, and they're still really good buddies to this day, really good chums. So I have that bias. I'm just letting you know that. But I was shocked as an observer how poorly she's coming across on camera. And I found it very interesting because Meghan, a little bit more scheming perhaps, a little bit more Machiavellian possibly, came across well to the masses. I'm talking about casual observers, the young people who would never normally think about royal topics, especially all over the world, and just tuned into Oprah. Lots and lots and lots of them came away feeling sorry for Harry and Meghan. That's just the way that it was. Tables have turned. That's how it was. So I found it really interesting, the disparity between the two women who are both polarising women in their way. Firstly, I'd like to compare the general sense of presence. Now, of course, Meghan had rocked up for a theatrical presentation, which many of us feel was a kind of propaganda. Gwyneth is turning up for a professional appearance at a court case. So one is designed to be theatre, one isn't. But as an actress, as a celebrity, and appearing via the cameras to a worldwide audience all over the YouTubes and the socials, whatever it is, whether Gwyneth Paltrow wants it or not, it is still a form of theatre for the world. And like it or not, it would take somebody very naive not to understand that you're going to be subject to a huge amount of scrutiny. Well, that's up to her whether she wants to ignore that or not. Meghan set the tone for her appearance by appearing in black, and it wasn't funereal because it wasn't entirely black, but it was black, which added a sense of gravitas. I've never understood why she chose that bird shit dress. I've never understood it. Have you? Droppings. It does not look like lotus flowers, Meghan. It looks like bird shit. The interesting thing is that when you take a look at this gown out of the studio lighting and the contrast of the colour grading that's done post-production, it doesn't look as monochrome, because to my eye and in my memory I'd always remembered that gown as black and white, more or less. But it's more nuanced than that, and it's got little hues of blue in it as well, do you see? Under more natural lighting. Well, I think that played rather well for Meghan, that contrast, whereas, as we'll talk about later, the contrast in the lighting and post-production of the cameras in the courtroom has not played well for Gwyneth Paltrow. Hasn't done her a single favour. And I shall tell you which celebrity is an exemplar of how to rock up at a court case, and that is our own fantastic Kate Moss. Remember, for Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard? It was a sharp blazer in black, great shoulders, a sort of tomboy bow neck affair, that blouse, with discreet earrings. The hair was slicked back, no nonsense, and the maquillage was fresh and immaculate. She is succinct, she is professional, she is precise, she is alert and present, and Meghan is also present in this interview. She shows up. Reluctance comes across as impertinence. I'm afraid that Gwyneth looks like she's turned up during a shopping expedition. Shopping trip vibes, like she's grabbed a tote and she's off to Starbucks. The press have been saying that she gives off luxury vibes, sort of rich woman vibes. An air of nonchalance and chic style, as if, effortless sort of chic, don't really care, but full of luxury, that luxury knits, luxury cashmeres, this sort of thing. So I may find out in the comments that my views are in the minority, but that's okay. We can all agree to disagree, can't we? But I think she looked absolutely dreadful, and she looked awful for this trial so far, and I'll tell you why. Well, I think she looks like a slob. I think she looks like a homeless woman in cashmere, and I think the palette is absolutely revolting on camera. The interesting thing is that, although I still don't really like the clothes that she's pulled together for it, when you see her in natural light and her in dark, the effect is quite different. It's the whites and the creams and the off-whites. And the thing is, as an actress, she will know this. This is what's frustrating. She will know it, because they are not reading well in the courtroom. And she came back for the second day wearing similar colours. I'm sorry, my dear, no offence to any of you that own it, but I think that knitwear is the ugliest in Christendom. And it reads as the colour of urine-soaked chamois leather. That is exactly what I saw when I first clapped eyes on it. These clothes Gwyneth wears, they're not actually that yellowish shade, but they read on camera that yellow shade. And her hair is also coming across in a similar tone, like a haystack in a farm that's been weed on by a collection of lambs and piglets. Remember Meghan's expression, I'm turtling. Well, apparently Gwyneth's turtle's getting curious as well, because she looks like she's turtling in a piss-stained igloo. This cashmere turtleneck is $800 or quid, I can't remember, 800, and it's for sale as the Laney. It's called the Laney, and it's sold on Goop. But as a first impression, I don't feel that it has done Gwyneth any favours to look as if she wants to turtle away, as if she wants to hide away in that piss-stained igloo. It just doesn't really... It gives off too much of an air of reluctance. Now with Meghan, you see, she was canny enough to have an open look, to have an open neck. It wasn't too indiscreet, but it was open. And the way that she sat was open and calm. It was a calm, open presence she had. If she wanted to stick with a paler palette or a neutral, then it wouldn't have hurt her to choose something crisper and whiter. And she could have accented this with something a little softer. I thought maybe even some rose pinks, some lighter pinks. That might have been a bit too girlish. But girlish suits Gwyneth, even as she transcends through the late summer years. it rather suits her. And what also I think would have suited her is not having the hair flopping all about the face in quite such a lank, loose look. She either needed a bit more volume blowed into it, or why not an updo? Why not an updo? A hair up would have lifted her face, because she's in danger of looking entirely too sullen throughout this whole trial. Because I've got a bit of resting bitch face as well. I can look rather glum and sullen if I'm not animated, as I'm sure many of you can. It's rather natural for most of us. And I really feel for her and others who are under the constant glare of the camera while they're at trial. It's not really cricket, I don't think, but that's what they have to go through, and she should have been prepared for that. But she looks sullen. I don't like this pouty business with the lips. It looks ridiculous. And although I don't think that she's anything at all like Amber Heard, people are drawing comparisons with Amber Heard because she's pulling all these strange expressions, the eyebrows, very curious, and it's not coming over that natural, to be honest. And it's almost coming, of course, rather beseeching towards the judge and girlish, and there's a lot of moving about anxiously with the hands. Some have said in the press that it's endearing her to the judges, and that her fabrics are giving off a soft impression to the judges, which will bring a lot of warmth to her. Well, that could be very true, but on camera and around the globe, I don't believe that it is coming over that way at all. It's not really casting her in the most favourable light. And the cardigan that she wore on day 2, another cashmere affair, $600 by her own label, G label. It is exquisite. I can imagine these pieces are exquisite, taken out of context. But in this context, where she knows she'll be sitting there all day, bored out of her brain, sort of folded over herself, it's not flattering. It reads tight, and I understand only too well in these jackets and various things that I wear here on the broadcast. You end up feeling very crumpled. You can get rings in your sleeves. My lovely velvet blazers can end up with rings in them, and some of those things are kind of unavoidable. But when you're Gwyneth Paltrow and you have every kind of fabric and garment at your disposal, all you have to do is just think, what do I need that is going to be practical, look good, read well and behave well in this environment? You'd think that she could drum up something that doesn't make her look as if she's suffocating, that doesn't make her very nice figure look rather boxy. It's not cute, it doesn't accentuate the good points of her figure. It's not flattering. Meghan emitted a calm energy in that interview, with very little drama in the body language. And one thing that got on my goat, and it annoys me because Gwyneth should know better, can do better, and would look a hell of a lot more regal if she put a bit more foresight into this. But did you see when she sort of bolted from the courtroom on one day? She's been asking and requesting for less cameras focused on her, complaining to the judge about that. But when she left the courtroom, she held up either a clipboard or a folder, some sort of blue, it might have been a folder, over her face to try and shield her from the rest of the journalists and photographers at the side. And while I can understand she doesn't want them in her face, she's not there working as an actress. They are there to do their jobs. And moreover, what I want to say is, why didn't she bring a fan? And some of you might have a little chuckle at this, but what is wrong with a fan? That is what they are made for. That is what they will do. They will obscure you gracefully, elegantly. And also, while you might chuckle at that suggestion, I happen to think that it looks more appealing than a folder. While you might chuckle at that suggestion, it would actually play rather well as an iconic moment, don't you think? If she would just, she donned her coat, marched out of the courtroom and flick of the fan, my dear. No, you're not getting the photographs. Why not bring these back? Why are people afraid of gloves and fans and these things that go back centuries? Because they have practical usages. You can gossip behind a fan, have a kiss behind the fan, do all kinds of things with a fan, my dear. And the same with all these sort of accessories. And if Gwyneth, she comes out with these iconic fragrances and scents and candles and all kinds of things, vibrating instruments, Lord knows, then what is wrong with a fan to shield the countenance? It's royal. And the very gesture, the very motion of hiding away suggests guilt. If she didn't want the drama of a fan, then she could have donned a pair of shaded lunettes before she left the courtroom. There's no harm in doing that. Once she stood up, you don the shaded lunettes and you progress. What's wrong with that? The sunglasses went on as soon as she left the court. Perhaps she was being respectful, so I'll give her that. But anything other than a folder or a book covering it didn't even cover her face anyway. It was too small. So what is the point of looking as if you're cowering and, shuffling along under some utilitarian apparatus when you could have gracefully progressed with a fan and a pair of shaded lunettes? I don't understand it. I cannot understand the thinking in it. This is supposed to be an icon, an American icon, and she's cowering under a folder, I ask you. But despite the way she's behaving, I actually can't blame her or anybody else within that courtroom for not getting frustrated. I'm sorry, my American fruits, what is going on with American courtrooms? Because we get to witness a few of them on trial. Everybody always looks as if they're not taking it seriously at all. It's like some sort of weird game. There's sort of sniggers between everybody, very casual. And I understand trials in all countries seem to go on for an eternity. Nobody seems to be there sort of chaperoning the activity and focusing everybody. Even the lawyers just seem like these sort of ragtag affairs with no professionalism. You'd think that Gwyneth had contacts for a great lawyer. Well, the plaintiff's lawyer is coughing his way through the entire thing. Cough, 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 cough. I suppose you can't help that, but it's not creating a good impression. Gwyneth's lawyer doesn't seem to know whether he's coming or going. These are not sharp individuals. I've met a lot of sharp individuals, coming through in London as I have over the years, of all ages, very capable people. I'm sure you have too in your business life, my dear. Even, if you work in the grocer's shop, they've got more savvy going on than some of these well-paid lawyers. I just watch it in horror and think, what is going on? Get your act together. And all the meek movements that Gwyneth is doing, together with her sort of frustration and sort of making eyes, little girlish eyes at the judge. I'm afraid it's giving off this impression of an entitled princess. That is how it is coming over to the world, that she has this sense of entitlement. And I don't especially think that's true, but how it's coming over. And the funny thing is, conversely, to compare with Meghan's performance on her public trial by Oprah Winfrey, she is an entitled princess. This is the funny thing. She actually is literally an entitled princess. Yes, she is a princess of the United Kingdom, for those of you that don't know, legally. She is an entitled princess, but she disguised it better. And her entitled princess came through eventually more in what she said rather than her body language. It wasn't quite so obvious. And also, in the passage of time, people were able to decipher and scrutinise what she had said, and were able to find at least 17 misremembrances, inconsistencies, recollections that might vary. And what is going on with that ugly chain around Gwyneth's neck? Who finds that aesthetically pleasing? I don't wish to offend any of you that have got something similar, but this sort of bondage and shackles affair doesn't do it for me. Hideous. So the reason I thought it was interesting to compare and contrast these two women in these two very different scenarios is because, I don't care for Meghan or her behaviour, and yet I understand that she gave off a good first initial impression to most of her target audience, most of the world. Whereas Gwyneth, who I do have time for, do admire in many ways, and see as a talent, and hear and believe that she is a good person and decent human being, conversely, hasn't come off exceptionally well to a lot of people. Not to everybody. I know there's a difference of opinion over there, but from a sort of PR perspective, hasn't come off as well. But time revealed Meghan, didn't it? Time revealed Meghan. That unravelled. And I hope, I must admit, I've told you that I've got a bias, I hope that time will reveal Gwyneth to those who are disparaging her at the moment. So as I sit here criticising a lot of what she's doing in a sort of fun, playful way, I hope we'll take it in that spirit. It is certainly not to disparage her, because my hope is that she will be proved to be the one in the courtroom that is telling the truth and not so devious. I'm interested to see further testimonies from her or whoever else. I think Apple herself will be testifying because she was there when it happened apparently, and Moses. So I'll be interested to see if any opinions change down the line. But who knows? I certainly wasn't there on the slope, so I'm certainly not saying that I can call exactly who's telling the truth. But I do give Gwyneth at this moment in time the benefit of the doubt. And also the plaintiff, this Terry I can't read the surname now, my writing again. This Terry's daughter has testified against him and written some evidence for Gwyneth's team, in which she revealed that he's been emotionally abusive to her, and she alleges, and they haven't really been in each other's life for 13 years. It seems there's a rather dark side to this character, but who knows? Time will tell, time will reveal. Now to the subject of Lady Margarita Armstrong-Jones. Do you know who she is? Lady Margarita Armstrong-Jones. She is the granddaughter of the late Princess Margaret, Countess of Snowdon, and she has been revealed as the star of Tatler for the May edition here in the Kingdom, which is the same month that she turns 21 in May, and they're calling her an English Rose bombshell. She is 26th in the line of succession, and she never got to meet Princess Margaret because she was born 2 or 3 months after she died. Yes, 3 months after she died in February of 2002. You might remember her from the Cambridge's wedding in 2011. She was one of the flower girls there. There were 4 flower girls. She was one of them. And her father, who is the Earl of Snowdon incumbent, David, was at the late Queen's funeral. So you might have caught him there. And he's estranged from his wife now, the Countess of Snowdon. He's estranged from Serena, but they were both at the Harkle nuptials. Yes, they were. Yes, they were. So you might have seen them there. And at that time, Margarita wore white with black trim. Quite stylish. She cannot hope to compete, though, can she, with the young Margot when it comes to glamour? No, she can't hope to compete. Not many can, my dear. Perhaps me and a few others, but not many. But it's nice to know that she's keeping the flag flying, isn't it, the granny? The Prince of Wales has been on a 2-day trip to Poland, and he made a surprise visit to troops near the Ukrainian and Polish border. Yes, he was visiting the Polish Territorial Defence Force. Surprise, surprise! He visited a refugee accommodation centre, which houses 300 Ukrainian women and children during a sojourn to Warsaw. He took selfies and played table tennis with little ones, and met with the volunteers who have been helping the families to settle into the Polish communities. He met with the President of Poland and laid a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier, and left a personal note paying tribute to those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Well, my dears, let me know what you think about the prospect of Meghan's candle, his wife, or what you thought about Gwyneth's version. Perhaps I should release a candle. What do you think, my dear? I think we all know what flavour, or what aroma rather, mine would be, don't you? Fruit basket, of course. It would be fruit basket scented. Well, we'll have to see what we can do, my dears. But, my dear fruits, my fruit crumbles, I thank you very much for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you in the next broadcast. I hope you look forward to seeing me too. My tip jar is in the description box below, and I beg you to channel the royal spirit to stay fruity and always on royal duty. Ta-ra, my dears, and toodle pip.